My name is Rudy Cherry. I'm a public art manager for the city of Denver. I've been with the program now for 21 years. And we have Janine Brack, our director here. Janine, if you want to introduce yourself.
And unlike Rudy, I've only been here a little over a year, but between us, we make a good team. So thanks everyone for being here tonight.
All right. So this is a new project that we have posted. Hopefully you had a chance to see the RFQ. If not, I dropped a link in the chat. It'll take you directly to the RFQ. So this project is for the Stanton Theatre, Loretto Heights. If you're from Denver, from Colorado, you probably have heard of it. The budget for this project is pretty good. It's $550,000. It's open to any artist residing in the United States. The deadline to apply for this project is December 1st, midnight. So the agenda for this evening, we did some welcomes already. We might do some introductions. So we have a small group, but maybe we can be slightly more informal a little later. We're going to do a quick overview of the public art program, how we're funded. We're going to talk a little bit about the theater in Loretto Heights, applying through CAFE, and maybe some do's and don'ts. So this meeting is basically how to apply to our call. Not so much technical, because we don't really have that information right now, but we could give you some of that. This is more how the information that you need for the first part of the application process. Have you all applied for a project in the past through CAFE? If you have, I'm sure you're probably familiar with this. Great. So a little bit about the public art program. It started in 1988 under Mayor Pena. It became ordinance, became a law in 1991. The ordinance states that any 1% of any capital improvement project, the budget over $1 million, we set aside 1% of that budget to commission artwork. Capital improvement project could be a new park, a new police station, or renovation to one of the city facilities. And we have over 400 pieces in our collections that we installed since 1988, and we have 550 pieces, including pieces pre-ordinance. So we have quite a bit of artwork in our collection. So we're looking forward to this new piece at the theater. So the goals of our program are fairly straightforward. We want each piece to be very site specific. So if you read the RFQ, we talked quite a bit about the site, the location, why it's important, the group of people, time of history. And another thing the artwork should do should enhance their experience. Obviously, we're commissioning artwork, so we do want something spectacular, something's going to be wonderful, so people could really have a really wonderful experience if they once they attend the new renovated theater. And the whole process is open and transparent. Like I said, any residents of the United States, you don't have to be a resident. If you live in the United States, you're able to apply. And actually, we even do calls internationally. So anybody who's on this call is from out of this country, that's not an issue either. And you don't have to be a public artist. I don't think you even necessarily need to call yourself an artist. So if, yeah, just apply. And like I said, it's an open and transparent process. We always have community members who participate in selection of artwork. And obviously we have the citizens, have opportunity for the citizen and community to be part of that process. Any questions, feel free to unmute yourself. It's a small group, so we could be pretty informal about any of this. So I'm going to talk about what's not public art. So public art is not signage or advertisement or wayfinding. We don't want anything that's mass produced. Obviously, we don't want you to go somewhere, buy something and call it your own. We definitely want an original piece of artwork. We don't want any reproductions. So if you've done something in the past, we want something that's unique to us and to the specific location. And no landscaping unless it's sort of a part of the project itself. So what is public art? So obviously the list for public art much bigger, sculptures of all type, paintings, graphic arts, printmaking, photography, mosaics, clay, textiles, all the fine arts, and even earthworks and light and sound. In the past, actually, we even commissioned performance pieces. But for this call, we're going to stick to actual physical artworks. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about the request for qualifications. I dropped the link to the site where we have the call now. So feel free to, if you haven't read it, if you haven't seen it, that information in there. So for this particular project, we're requesting 6 digital images of past works. So we're looking for qualifications, not proposals. Sometimes people get that confused. So right now, qualifications says we're looking for if you're qualified. Obviously, everybody's willing to apply. We want to make sure what you submit you have the qualification to move on to the second round. We're looking for a resume, no longer than 2 pages, and a statement no longer than 2,000 characters. And I'll talk a bit more about the images, the resume, and the statements. So for images, like I said, we're looking for 6 images. I think you have an opportunity to actually upload a video too, if you want to do that. Just make sure the last thing you upload is the video. Otherwise, it makes it more difficult for the judges to review your submission. And actually, the first thing anybody's going to look at when we start reviewing all these applicants are your images. So make sure you have a really high quality images. Yeah, if you haven't spent, I would maybe recommend hire a professional photographer if you need to do that, because that's the first thing that's going to grab people's eyes. We're going to, for this type of project, for this budget, we're probably going to be seeing between 200 to 300 applicants. So if those images don't pop, then obviously you're going to be passed over. So an example of what you may want to upload, the one on the right, obviously it's kind of interesting. It shows the artwork in the setting, but doesn't really give you a sense of what we're looking at. So I would recommend maybe doing something, excuse me, on your left. I'm getting my left and right confused. So the woman looking at the art piece is wonderful. It gives you a sense of scale, but make sure at the very minimum you have an image that really shows what you do and really focus on the artwork itself. And obviously the plants and things are distracting from the actual piece. And you may want to do a variation, a piece of different artworks. For this piece, if you read the RFQ, we are asking for a suspended piece, but you don't obviously, you don't necessarily have, if you haven't never done a suspended piece, that's fine too. Like I said, right now we're just looking for really high quality artists to move forward with. For a resume, we're looking for the maximum 2 pages. I think that's all you can upload. Again, if we're going to have 300 applicants, we want to make sure that the resume is easy to read. It's it's to the point. There's bullet points, no rambling on, and just focus on your art experience. If you want to include schools, that's fine, but maybe you leave out a lot of work experience. Maybe it's not really necessary for this piece, if that's clear. And I think besides the images, I think the next important thing is the statement of interest. So in your statement, you may want to sort of talk about why this call is interesting to you, why you think you're the right person for this particular project. In your statement, I think it's important that you, at the very minimum, mention Loretto Heights, mention the Harvey Park, that's the neighborhood that Loretto Heights sits in. Yeah, and the statement also, even though we're not looking for proposals, I think this is where you could maybe talk a little bit about your design approach, how you go about designing something, how you go about thinking about your conceptual idea. Obviously, we're looking for something that's going to be suspended. Maybe that's where you could talk about how you envision something suspended in the space. And I think also it'd be nice to maybe talk a little bit about how you work with diverse community, because the selection panel will have multiple folks from different communities, and it'd be nice to have that information on there too. Even though we're not actually, for these artists, a lot of our calls, sometimes we do ask artists to work directly with the community. We're not asking you to do this for this project, but I think it's always nice that you've actually been out there. We're actually, if you've never been to Loretto Heights, or that part of Denver, I recommend you go out there. Maybe there's a park nearby. You can hang out in the park. Yeah, it's a beautiful view of the city from there. Maybe get a chance to talk to some of the folks who use the park, and get a better understanding who lives there, and how the Laurel Heights complex fits into their neighborhood. So if you ever, I'm sure if you live in Denver, you're familiar with this amazing building. I think it sits on the highest hill in the city, and it's located in 3001 Federal Boulevard. Right now it's under construction. There's a lot of construction taking place. You can't really get too close to it. But like I said, there is a park nearby. And I would, at the very minimum, if you haven't been there, just drive out there, have a chance to actually experience the site.
And actually, the theater building is not the big building with the kind of tower there. If you see the building more in the foreground, that is the former library building. And then there's a little bridge, and you can just see the side of the theater building there where the artwork will be. Right. We've got some other renderings that will show you more specifically the building.
So these are the goals in the RFQ. We could talk a little bit more about this. I think so. We want something that's welcoming to the, once the new theater is built, there's going to be a prominent piece. So we want something that celebrates the history of Loretto Heights. It was a place for learning, celebrates performance and community life. It creates a visual connection between the campus and the neighborhood. We want something that's probably bold and colorful, has a strong both day and night presence. Obviously, and I'll show you some images of the renderings of what the theater is going to look like. It does have a wonderful glass facade, so the artwork will be able to be seen from the exterior of the building. So we want that to be sort of a really strong presence to draw people into the theater. And all this information is in RFQ, so I don't want to go through the whole thing. Feel free to unmute yourself if you have any specific questions. Janine, feel free to, if there's something more important on these goals that we want to touch on, feel free to chime in. But I think we want something that's really bold and striking. I think that's the most important thing, but if it does have connections and out to their neighborhood, it's fantastic too.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
In terms of lighting, will there be natural lighting, and will there be lighting that is in the building already?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll show you some images of what it's going to look like in a second. But absolutely, yeah, there definitely will be lighting. Like I said, I have the building. I guess I could just we already talked about we want a suspended artwork. So once we have an artist, on board, whomever we pick, we'll work very closely with the design team. We're starting this project really early. The theater is still under design, so we do want to bring an artist in to help sort of guide the design of what this artwork it's going to work, how the artwork is going to fit into the new space, if that makes sense. But absolutely, I think lighting is important. There will be lighting available on there. The lighting could be integrated into our piece, or it could be lit from the theater itself. And again, the budget for this is $550,000.
I would suggest that your artwork probably needs to include lighting either within the piece itself or lighting specific to the artwork, though.
Right.
I don't think the general theater lighting will be adequate, most likely.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the daytime, there is a lot of natural light. Right. You'll see here in a moment.
Yeah, so this is sort of an image of the facade of the theater. Obviously, you can see the beautiful glass wall, and there will be a lot of natural lighting in there. when it's not nighttime, which could be kind of interesting. Like, how do you actually use the light, the natural lighting into your work? Something to think about. So these, obviously we want the artwork to draw people into the theater. So this is a section of the actual theater. So the ceiling from the lobby to the ceiling itself is roughly 26 feet, and it kind of slopes down to maybe 20 feet. And we have around 22 feet to work with, even more actually. I'll show you a second image of it. So this is the interior of the lobby. So the suspended work will be somehow in here. And actually, the work, this will be in the main location for it. We definitely want something that could be seen from the exterior, but it doesn't mean elements of the artwork can be throughout, the lobby somehow. So that's something we could work with once we have an artist on board. What's also great about this project, you'll be able to see in multiple locations, not just for the exterior, not just from above, from below, but also from this balcony area, which could be really interesting, a different view that usually people don't have with an artwork. You're either looking at it from afar or from below. So this could be really a unique challenge for artists to work with. Any questions on that? Again, we're looking to bring an artist in to work so they can work directly with the architect. This project, the design team is aware, obviously they're aware that we're going to be doing a major piece of artwork, and they're already designing the ceiling to make sure it will support that load. And so right now we're going to talk a little bit about maybe how to apply on Cafe if you never applied on Cafe before. So all of our calls are advertised on callforearthy.org. So this is the landing page for it. If you already have an account, you probably have used this before, so it's probably nothing new for you. But if you haven't, you probably need to you have to start an account with Cafe. It's fairly straightforward, and once you have that, you can log in. So this is the login page. Fairly straightforward. So the first thing you want to do is maybe put together a whole series of images that you think they look good. And on this stage, you can upload this. I'm not quite sure how many images, but a lot more than 6. So you can upload a bunch of images in your collection and can use those for different calls. So you upload them on your portfolio. You can add images up to 100. I think this is important too. So if you've never ever done that, so once you have an image uploaded on Cafe, it'll prompt you to put some metadata in there. So I think this is important to note. Obviously, when we review these pieces, be nice to know exactly what we're looking at. What's the type? If you have a title, it's always fun to know what the title is. Obviously, medium is super important. Height and width. It's always good to know. Sometimes we don't have a sense of scale, so it's good to know how big the piece is. Price, I think it's good to know how much something you think it's worth. I think it's important. Year completed. So you should try to fill out as much of this as possible. The more information we have, the more easier for the committee to have an understanding of what the artwork is. And once that's done, then you can just apply for a call. So it's fairly straightforward. It's going to ask you for some prompts, some information. It's going to ask you to upload your resume. You write your statement on there. You maybe want to write it on a Word document and copy it and paste it in there. Make sure it's, make sure the statement is to the point. Don't ramble on and on. Focus on on the project itself, focus on the goals, go back and reread the goals on RFQ, maybe include those in your statement. You'd be surprised how many sort of generic statements that we get on these calls that have absolutely nothing to do with what we requested. So we definitely want some, at the very minimum, we want to know that the artist is taking some time and studied a little bit about the project and reflected on it in their statement. And obviously, the photos again. So make sure you have really high quality photos. That's the first thing that's going to really draw the jurors' attention. And it's free, so there's no cost to you all. We pay the cost up front. So a few things to remember. We're almost done with this, so hopefully we ask some question afterwards. So make sure you read the application again. Really, just take the time and just go over it. Like I said, I did drop the link to it in the chat. Photos obviously are super important. The resume is great, but I think again, we're not. We actually encourage people who never apply for a public art project or have limited experience of public art, right? I think we always want new artists to be part of this, so don't be too carried away with the resume, but make sure it's clean and readable. And again, the letter of intent is super important. I think that's where we get a sense of who you are, how you're going to go about maybe researching and designing this project. So we get from the letter of intent, we get a little sort of an understanding of who you are and personality, if that makes sense, because we obviously don't see you in person. And apply early. Please don't wait till like I said, the application closes on the 1st at midnight. Don't wait till like 11:30 to start doing this. Get it in earlier if at all possible. And
Rudy, we do have a couple questions coming through the chat.
oh, great! Yeah,
cool
and,
if I read those to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I can stop sharing.
Yeah, so here's a kind of a two-parter. If I submit a proposal rather than strictly examples of previous work, will that disqualify me from consideration, or is there some flexibility allowed in how the material is presented?
Well, I think if you want to show, obviously we're not asking for that. The reason why we don't ask for that, because this is the only information you have in the RFQ, and for you to start designing something from that, maybe you don't have enough. We really want to bring from this pool of artists. Let's say we have 100, 200 people applying. From that 200 pool, we'll probably invite back 3 to 5 artists. At that point, we'll give those artists all the opportunity in the world to talk to us, talk to the design team, to talk to the community, give them all the renderings, all the information they need, any 3D model of the space that we have for them to actually do a full presentation. But if you have one image or something that you want to do, I'm not going to say it's not going to disqualify you, but I don't know how it's going to help. I think the statement's going to be more important actually, because we have a sense how you think. Like I say, you haven't been in a space, you haven't been there, and even with these renderings, it could change. So I would go, I wouldn't do that. But again, if that's what you want to do, that's up to you.
And I would say, you only get the 6 photos to make an impression. Yeah. So, make those as best you can. If you want to take one of those for a proposal, or do multiple, pictures of one artwork, or show like the design and the finished artwork, you can do that. Just make sure you're showing yourself to your best advantage.
Right. Yeah. Again, we're looking for qualification. We want to see what you've done, not what you can do.
And if you're very new to it, it's okay to say that in your proposal, in that statement of intent. I think there you can explain that you're new to it, but here's how you would approach the work, and here's what you've done in your past that makes you can successfly complete this.
That's a great point, Janine. Actually, if you're fairly new with public art, there's a lot of fabricators here in town who are more than happy to create your vision. So that's something you may want to say. You may want to say, I'm new to this field. I think I'm an amazing artist, but I have this amazing team behind me. I have this fabricator who's done all these beautiful pieces, and I have all the confidence in the world that they could visualize my idea for the space. That's happened. We've definitely commissioned artists with no public art experience in the past.
And kind of a follow-up related to that, I'm relatively new to making public art. In previous commissions, I've worked closely with an engineering firm and typically include 3 of their images in my submission. Is including those types of images appropriate here, or should I limit myself strictly to past completed artwork?
Yeah, again, we want to see your artwork. So I guess it could be confusing sometimes if you show somebody like something that you worked with or a group. Again, I think you mentioned that in your statement. I worked with amazing engineer, and maybe you could leave a link in the resume, not resume, but in the statement, like please visit. This is the engineer I'm working with. They're amazing. Please take a look at those images and to see what kind of quality we're able to give you.
Just present yourself and not your vision for this artwork, but your vision for doing artwork as best you can. That's what's going to make the most impact on the panelists. And if they're looking through 300 applications, you got to catch their eye. And then one other here says, I know engineering specs will be communicated later, but I'm wondering if there's a weight limit that you are aware of. Is the selection committee looking for lightweight art?
We don't know yet. The design team is aware, and we'll be designing pick points, whatever needs to be done to the ceiling. But since we don't really know what kind of artwork we're looking at, what we need, we don't know. Again, all this information will be given to you if you're one of the 3 to 5 finalists. So at this point, we don't know. And again, maybe at this point, focus again on these beautiful images that you've done in the past, and again in your statement, maybe envision whatever you're thinking of doing.
One pointer we can give is that because we're envisioning a suspended piece here, we asked the engineering team to kind of beef up that part of the ceiling.
Yep.
So they will be doing extra reinforcement there. Right. So I can't tell you an exact weight, but I think it could handle something fairly hefty, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be featherweight. And we're also going to have extra ability to put lighting up there. So extra wiring and that sort of thing, so that lighting is easier than it might be in a building that didn't have that, since we have that opportunity.
And I think a few people join a little later, but yeah, I think once we have an artist on board, we want that person to work really closely with the design team. So we're starting pretty early, and we're hoping we have an artist on board before the whole thing is completely designed, so we can integrate the piece really well into the atrium.
And then another question, is video mapping something we'd consider? And that means moving video images that are ever changing.
I think it'd be interesting again, but we do want something that's also visible in the daytime. I must have a very strong daytime presence too. Obviously, a video map could be kind of cool in night, but this piece needs to have a day and nighttime presence. So we don't want to just be a nighttime piece.
And I would say too, we're definitely we didn't want to make this like a 2D call, so it would need to be something different than screens on a wall showing video.
Right.
It would need to be something suspended and a little different than just screens on a wall. Right. But I personally love technology art. I know Rudy does too, and it's not something we have a ton of in the collection, so we're always open to new media, new forms, and this one's indoors, so it might be a good place for something like that.
Keep in mind though, it could be difficult time to maintain. So we're very mindful of technology. We're not against it. We want to make sure it works and it doesn't break down and it's easily repaired. But yeah, it's why we hire artists because we don't really know what we want. We just know where it should go. We have specific goals, but we want these artists to actually show us, envision those goals.
And I've seen some artwork, that it's like projected video or projection mapping on a structure, lots of different ideas. So absolutely be creative.
Right. Keep in mind, I think I mentioned in this piece will be viewed in multiple locations. So I think it's really cool. Like I said, a lot of suspended pieces aren't seen from eye level from the balcony. So I think it's a great opportunity to do something interesting there.
It could also incorporate, some sort of moving light element or possibly sound. You got to be careful there because we will have theater performances going on. And Rudy, would you go back to the picture of the facility since we had a couple of people join
Yeah,
late?
absolutely. Let me share my screen again.
And I think we could point out a couple things about the facility. Once this comes up. So one of the things, while he's getting to the right slide, I wanted to say is you saw those big glass windows, or if you weren't here, you'll see them in a moment. That particular facade is facing the west. So there is a beautiful mountain view there. So that's something to consider when you're creating your artwork. And I would suggest something that incorporates and makes use of that beautiful view and doesn't entirely block it would probably be most appealing. Something that interacts with that view could be really, really striking.
Like I said, it's the highest place in Denver. I think it's one, if not, it's one of the highest locations in the whole city. And on
my understanding is there's two places in Denver that fight for that distinction. Right. And I don't know who.
It's Inspiration Point and Loretto Heights.
And we already have artwork at the other one, so.
But you do get a wonderful view of the city. You can actually see Red Rocks from that hill.
Another thing I think to point out is that this was Loretto Heights was a college for a long time, went through a couple iterations. It was created by the Sisters of Loretto. That was a Catholic organization of nuns, and some of them are still active in the project. They no longer own it. Obviously, it belongs to the city now. And it was a really important theater training program, I would say, in the maybe 70s and 80s. It was a really important place. And then after a while it was sold and became a couple other things. But there's a great history of folks training for performance here and actually training visual artists as well. There's an existing sculpture on the other side of the facility that was done in the 70s, I believe, that we will be restoring. So it's a great place, I think, for artwork and for artwork to respond to those things. And it's also really, really important to this community. There isn't a lot of art facilities down in this part of town. And this theater and many of these buildings have been vacant for a long, long time. So it's super important to this community that it's being refurbished and going to be active again. And you can look online, but there's some very interesting things going on in some of the other buildings. There's some social services going on and some really cool community-oriented projects. So those are all just things to think about as you're creating your artwork.
Thank you, Jenny. I didn't really touch on the history, but all the information section in RFQ, it's a really, really good history of the neighborhood. The theater itself was actually built in '63. Like Jenny was saying, it was one of the premier learning institutions for theater. And the college itself was built in 1888, and the neighbors, sort of the South Harvey Park neighborhood, was sort of established in the 1950s. And it's still a very mixed community. People are very proud of their neighborhood. Well, that's it.
Are there other questions for us? When is construction slated to break ground? And yes, it's still in the design phase. I actually just asked the construction team for that schedule. So we can put that answer up, but I don't have it off the top of my head. What I can tell you is that the facility is planned to open towards the end of 2028. And we certainly will be striving to have all the artwork in place when the facility opens. So there's a couple years there, but sometimes that's not a lot of time for artwork. So maybe keep that in mind. Anything else?
I'm going to drop this presentation in the chat so you can see those images. So let me go ahead and do that.
And we have a question specific to Cafe Rudy.
Okay.
She thinks she saw a specific resume naming format.
Yeah.
And can you show that again?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me, I'm trying to put this in the chat. Doesn't like it. Okay, I'll do it. I could do a little better. Let me bring it up again. And you know, that's just a format. If you don't do it correctly, it's not gonna disqualify you. Let me share my screen.
And maybe while he's doing that, I could say a little bit about the panel for folks who might be new to the process. Most of our panels have about 12 individuals from the community. That always includes someone who's an artist and someone who's an arts professional, and also either a council member from the district or that person's designated person, often a council aide. Although on this one, the councilman himself is really, really invested in the project. So he'll be sitting there personally. And so those are the folks who actually make the decision. You know, Rudy and I will coach them and guide them and help them through the process, but we're not the decision makers. So just keep that in mind. You've got folks who are really invested in the community, who have lived there a long time, who'll be looking at your submissions.
Right. Our job is to make sure anybody applies, because it's a fair chance to make sure the artwork is seen and discussed.
And it looks like there's that naming convention.
Yeah, again, you know, it's just if you don't do this, it's not gonna be a problem.
We're not gonna have time to check that.
But thank you, though. I mean, like I said, let me see if I could drop it. I'm still trying to get this into the chat.
What are you putting in there?
I'm trying to put the PDF of the presentation into the chat.
Oh, I don't know if that works.
Oh, okay.
But we will have it up online in a couple of probably a couple of days, as soon as our marketing team can extract it and put it up there, so you can check it out.
There we go. Well, I'm unable to. I can't do it. Sorry. We think my information is on RFQ. Feel free to send me an email, and I'll make sure I'll send you this presentation to you.
All right. If there's no other questions, I think we'll wrap it up. This was kind of a fast one, so happy to stay on a bit. Also, if folks are worried about cafe or don't have access, that's something we can help with. Most folks these days have a computer, but occasionally we run into someone who needs some assistance with that. So just let us know if that's the case.
Great. Well, thank you, everybody. Again, thank you for taking the time to join us. We're super excited about this project. I think it's going to be one of our premier projects for next year.
Yep,
And we're looking forward to seeing everybody's applications. So my name is Rudy Cherry. I'm a public art manager for the city of Denver. I've been with the program now for 21 years. And we have Janine Bragg, our director here. Janine, if you want to introduce yourself.
And unlike Rudy, I've only been here a little over a year, but between us, you know, we make a good team. So thanks everyone for being here tonight.
All right, so this is a new project that we have posted. Hopefully you had a chance to see the RFQ. If not, I dropped a link in the chat where it'll take you directly to the RFQ. So this project is for the Stanton Theatre, Loretto Heights. If you're from Denver, from Colorado, you probably have heard of it. The budget for this project is pretty good. It's $550,000. It's open to any artist residing in the United States. The deadline to apply for this project is December 1st at midnight. So the agenda for this evening, we did some welcomes already. We might do some introductions. So we have a small group, but maybe we can be slightly more informal a little later. We're going to do a quick overview of the public art program, how we're funded. We're going to talk a little bit about the theater in Loretto Heights, applying through cafe, and maybe some do's and don'ts. So this meeting is basically how to apply to our call. Not so much technical, because we don't really have that information right now, but we could give you some of that. This is more how the information that you need for the first part of the application process. Have you all applied for a project in the past through Cafe? If you have, I'm sure you're probably familiar with this. Great. So a little bit about the public art program. It started in 1988 under Mayor Pena. It became ordinance, became a law in 1991. The ordinance states that any 1% of any capital improvement project, the budget over $1 million, we set aside 1% of that budget to commission artwork. Capital improvement project could be a new park, a new police station, or renovation to one of the city facilities. And we have over 400 pieces in our collections that we installed since 1988, and we have 550 pieces, including pieces pre-ordinance. So we have quite a bit of artwork in our collection. So we're looking forward to this new piece at the theater. So the goals of our program are fairly straightforward. We want each piece to be very site specific. So if you read the RFQ, we talked quite a bit about the site, the location, why it's important, the group of people, time of history. And another thing the artwork should do should enhance their experience. Obviously, we're commissioning artwork, so we do want something spectacular, something's going to be wonderful, so people could really have a really wonderful experience if they once they attend the new renovated theater. And the whole process is open and transparent. Like I said, anybody, any residents of the United States, you don't have to be a resident. If you live in the United States, you're able to apply. And actually, we even do calls internationally. So anybody wants on those calls from out of this country, that's not an issue either. And you don't have to be a public artist. I don't think you even necessarily need to call yourself an artist. So if, yeah, just apply. And like I said, it's an open and transparent process. We always have community members who participate in selection of artwork. And obviously we have the citizens, have opportunity for the citizen in the community to be part of that process. Any questions, feel free to unmute yourself. It's a small group, so we could be pretty informal about any of this. So I'm going to talk about what's not public art. So public art is not signage or advertisement or wayfinding. We don't want anything that's mass produced. Obviously, we don't want you to go somewhere, buy something and call it your own. We definitely want an original piece of artwork. We don't want any reproductions. So if you've done something in the past, we want something that's unique to us and to the specific location. And no landscaping unless it's sort of a part of the project itself. So what is public art? So obviously the list for public art is much, much bigger.